So, good Sunday morning, good Father's Day Sunday morning. We're here today with Jim Davidson. Jim, you're a member of IPMS Ottawa, amongst other things. Jim has volunteered to speak to us today about sailing ship models. Now, we've had Mr. Moore in a number of times, and he's talked to us about modern Navy ships, the steel ships, as it were. And he took us through the Royal Canadian Navy, through its history, and he gave us a lot of insights about ship modeling and concerns and things one should think about and be aware of when they do that kind of ship modeling. Jim offered to do a session for us because he said the realm of sailing ships has not been covered, and sailing ships have a lot of special considerations and things you want to know about before you dive in, so to speak. So Jim's going to take us through a journey on plastic ship models. I think you're going to touch on wood a little bit too, but things that are common to both styles of modeling and things that are unique to each. So I will turn it over to Jim.
Well, we're both here anyway. Okay, my name is James, and I am addicted to model building. We've been known each other for quite a long time. The Hobby Center is a great place to come, great place to supply all kinds of stuff. My specialty has always been sailing ships. And I've been building since I was 5, many moons ago. And when I was 9, my father, after bugging him for a week, gave in and bought me a model kit that I wanted. Turned out to be a sailing ship model kit. 9 years old, I actually built the thing, and it actually looked like the box. It wasn't good by any means, but it looked like the box, and I was so proud of that. You know, you'd take it to school for show and tell. You're 9 years old, and everybody go, ooh, ah, ooh, oh. But what I've heard the most often, all through my life, all through my modeling careers and everything else, is, oh, that's beautiful, but I could never do that. Wrong. I think that's very wrong. I think anybody can do a sailing ship, especially anyone who's used to doing a hobby with their hands. What doesn't matter really what hobby it is, but if you're used to creating with your hands, then you can do sailing ships. People who do miniatures can paint miniature sailing ships. People who do tanks, planes, certainly. Even the people who decorate Easter eggs. I had one lady who was a fantastic decorator on Easter eggs. I got her started into sailing ships in miniature. So it can be done. It's a matter of patience. And a lot of people say, I don't have the patience for that. Sure you do. If you have a hobby of any kind, you've got patience. Sometimes the patience don't pay you. Oh well. Anyhow, sailing ships. Basically, keep in mind, most sailing ship kits don't get finished. They end up on the back shelf. They end up in a yard sale. They end up in the trash. They don't get finished because a lot of people will end up getting the biggest thing they can see. Beautiful ship model. But they run out of patience. They run out of interest. They didn't realize how much work it's going to be. And it ends up on the back shelf. And then it ends up getting forgotten. All you need is time. And the trick is to decide ahead of time, I'm going to take my time on this one. I'm going to take 2 months. I'm going to take 5 months. It's not a rush job. As you know, an awful lot of modelers can finish an airplane kit in an afternoon. A lot of people can build a really elaborate tank model in a weekend. People are used to getting fast results. Not a good idea with sailing ships. It takes more time. But, that said, it can be done.
Now, would you agree there's sort of a process? I'm on the vending side of the thing because I sell these things to people. So my approach to ship modeling is, okay, you decide I'm going to build a ship model. Well, then I would probably direct you at a single-masted type of model.
Yes.
Rather than the Victory. Okay, the Victory is a 3-deck ship of the line with 100 guns and enough masts and nightmares to scare most people, even experienced modelers. The Victory is a surmountable thing. So I always tell people 1 mast, 2 masts, a blue nose, a schooner. Less is more, as it were.
Absolutely.
Work up your skills, get things going, and then expand from there.
Absolutely. And the smaller ones can often be done quicker and easier if you like working with small components. For instance, the little Winston Churchill here is in 350th scale. That means the actual ship model is approximately the length of my finger. And it's a schooner. Easy to do the masts and rigging. The actual rigging is very simple and it's repetitive. It's just very, very fine string. And the whole thing is easy to do. The hull is one piece. Go ahead and open it if you wish. Hull is one piece and it's made to go flat on the table.
There's the size.
Yeah. Like I said,
Compared to my hand.
about the size of a finger.
You know, minimal number of parts.
Exactly.
Enough to keep you busy, and they're small, so the rigging thread, of course.
Yeah.
And then there's those sails.
And plastic sails can be made to look very good. It's just a matter of painting. And just about anybody who does a hobby, particularly in miniatures or making, is used to painting. So, the small ones are a good idea. The single-masted ones are a very good idea. And there are other kinds of ships. This is Arab, for instance, an Arab dhow from the Persian Gulf. There are Asian ships. There are Melanesian ships. And they're different. Little simpler, one mast, construction's easy, 2 sails. That would be an excellent kit for somebody to start with. And it builds up well. There is also a lot of people talk about ships in bottles. This is not particularly a good one, but it is a good example of how to put a ship in a bottle, because the instructions tell you very clearly how to fold the masts and put the ship inside. I've done ships in bottles. I've sold about 6 of them. This particular one, the ship itself is pretty terrible. It's very basic. But it's a good way to learn if you want to try that type of thing, because the instructions will show you how to do it. These can be still found eBay, a lot of places. They're getting rare. We should mention also, a lot of sailing ship kits are either out of production or hard to find. Go ahead and look at that.
A lot of them go in and out of production.
Exactly.
So you may be able to get the USS United States from Revel this year, but it may not be released again for another 5 to 10 years.
5 to 10 years, exactly. So as you know yourself with a store, it's not always available.
That's right.
But I always suggest to everybody, always check with your local hobby store. Because if they don't have it, they can usually find it. Or at least tell you whether it's available or not. So check with your local hobby store. Always a good idea. I have pictures that Anthony will be including in the video. That little kit, tiny little boat. 1 mast, a couple of sails, nothing fancy, very easy to make, and yet this builds up to be absolutely super beautiful. There's some pictures that Anthony can put on the video to show this finished. It is absolutely gorgeous and very easy to do.
So this, skipping ahead, so to speak,
Yep.
you build the hull and you construct it, that's the basis of the model. Then you've got the masts, you've got the rigging, and then you've got the sails. And sometimes you have to do the sails in conjunction with the rigging.
Sometimes.
Now you have the choice to have the sails furled, or you have them open like they were actually running, billowing. That's what their vacuum form sails do for you. And you have a choice of running rigging, standing rigging, which have different amounts of rigging and
Exactly.
blocks, and the way it's all laid out. These are all things you can consider before, because it might be simpler for one to do the rigging, standing rigging, and have the sails furled, and do away with a lot of the headache that comes with, especially in your first couple of models.
Exactly. Anthony will have a picture also of, I've won a few prizes, and in the pictures there's my Cuddy Sark, which won first place ships a long time ago, but it has furled sails. It was easier to have the sails, the yards and masts bare to do the rigging. Because if you're rigging with sails, then the sails have their own lines. The sails have their own control rings. And that can be very difficult, well, very tricky to put in after you've got all the other rigging installed. Always, any sailing ship, always start rigging from the front and work your way back. It's almost impossible to do it the other way. You swear at it for hours.
And work inside to outside.
Exactly. Always. Now, there's 4 basic categories of models that you can get. Metal, paper, wood, and plastic. They're the only 4 I know of where sailing ship models are available. Metal, there's very few, but the store carries. P-School carries some very nice small sailing ship models. Metal Earth also does that. And some of them can be beautiful. Again, they'd be about the size of our finger, maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter. And they can usually be done in an afternoon, if not a weekend. And they can come out beautiful. There's also GHQ Miniatures in Britain that sells
wargaming stuff.
Yeah, wargaming stuff. Miniatures for war games. But some of them are extremely nice. And basically, all you need to do is paint. Have the patience to paint the details, and the rest goes together quite easily. That's metal. Paper. Suggestion. Okay. Paper kits. Not something I would recommend as a first kit.
And that's something you buy at your local hobby store.
Not often, no. It's very rare to find anybody who has paper kits anymore. For instance, this is a complete kit. And that builds up into an 18th century warship with masts and sails. Quite impressive one, actually.
It's kind of a whole different skill set. Different
Yes.
types of glues, different types of concerns.
Very much
Color
so.
matching the printed paper where you have to do touch-ups.
Mhm.
You know, it's a whole thing in and of itself. So the skills from the plastic model or the wood model don't necessarily transfer to that one. It's a whole learning thing for that specific medium.
Mind you, an awful lot of people do origami. An awful lot of people do paper scrapbooking, and they're used to cutouts. That would be a good way to start. If you haven't done a plastic kit, if you haven't done a wood kit, maybe a paper would be the way to start. Because they are more complex, maybe, but they're actually simple because they're pre-painted.
Right.
They're easy to fold as long as you know what you're doing. You're following the instructions. Cut and fold. And basic paper glue. And they can produce extremely nice kits. All you have to do afterwards is add rigging.
There you go. Rigging is rigging.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which medium
Threads.
you're working.
It doesn't matter. You're always working with threads of various kinds. Yes. That's from shipyards in Poland.
Okay. It's detailed bits.
And it builds up to a beautiful kit. But it's big. It's 1/96 scale. It's huge.
Okay.
Now, let's cover quickly here the idea of size and scale. Anybody who hasn't done this, they've never tried, but they want to try a sailing ship, keep in mind, it's going to be a certain size when it's out of the box and built. So a small kit like the Churchill or the Armour will come out under a foot, usually about the same height or close.
We showed you what the holes look like.
Exactly.
Like those.
Exactly. So that's an easy size. That's something that's simple and easy to put, let's say, on a shelf or in a cabinet. But they're only that size.
Yeah.
A lot of things get bigger.
Now, in the traditional world of wooden sailing ships,
Yes.
especially scratch builds,
Mm-hmm.
what is it? 1/196th
Sixth.
was a standard scale.
Exactly.
This comes in at 1/180th, so the plastic guys kind of muddled with it a bit.
Yes.
Or it could be converted from sort of a metric idea.
Yes.
Because 1/196 is an imperial scale,
Yes.
based on inches and foot and so forth.
Exactly.
Then the next one up was 1/96, which is double that. and that became a very popular standard scale for ship modeling.
Yeah.
But of course, in the world of plastic, our airplanes are 1/72nd, so you can buy 1/72nd ships. If you get something from Asia, they might have went 1/100th, because again, the metric thing.
Exactly.
So one of the problems, if you this ship models, was they were all over the place. There was no standardization of scale. They did more in the warship scale. They seem to standardize on 700th and 350th, but we've yet to see that kind of standardization in the sailing ship realm.
Yes.
In the wood, there is more of that. Right?
Yes.
More
196.
And if you're really crazy, there's 1/64th. I've seen those. It must be
1/60th.
1/60th.
There's 1/44th. There's 1/144th, which is a standard aircraft scale too.
Yeah.
So there's scales of all over the place. It depends very much on the manufacturer and what they've tried to do. A lot of them ended up box scale, which is odd, but they made it to fit the box rather than any given scale.
Back in the 50s and 60s.
Yes.
So there's the length of the hull for this 1/180th. So that's about, to the tip of the mast, you're looking roughly 12 to 14 inches.
Exactly.
And usually in a sailing ship, I think approximate your length is roughly proximate to your height. So you're looking at a square or a triangle.
Exactly. A 16-inch ship with 3 masts will probably have the mast height at 16 or 17.
Yeah.
And add the base to that, so maybe as high as 19. Slightly higher than the length of the hull.
So this one would be, roughly a foot, 14 inches by 14 inches. So
yep.
If you want a place to display it or a case or something, that's your consideration.
Yes, very much so.
And I trust you're going to show us some big stuff.
Oh, yes. But anyhow, small. I consider the various things we have tiny, such as the Metal Earth kits, the Winston Churchill. We have small, which these qualify as really. Same thing with Le Phoenix here. The built kit is only about 7 inches. So that would consider small. Same with this little Cuddy Sark. They end up being small size. Then you have medium, which is anything I consider above 20 to 26 inches. As you can see, those can be very small.
This is considered 1 to 600.
What's 600?
Which is kind of fun because that was the scale Airfix.
Airfix, yes.
Warships in, so you got this part beside your Bismarcks there.
Yes.
For scale comparison.
And Heller put out quite a lot in 600th. They also do some weird scales. For instance, the Italians, Toro and the rest of them, like 1/400th, which doesn't really fit anywhere, but the Italian manufacturers seem to like it. Another one that was popular in Japan was 1/450th. We had Academy, we had Fujimi, a whole bunch of them that did in 450. It's a little smaller than 350, but
this little whaler here.
Yes.
This is 200 scale.
Yeah.
So that'd be like a metric scale.
Yeah. And that would match very well with a lot of other sailing ships because there's a lot of them available in 1/200th, particularly from the Eastern Europe. Zvesta, Red Star, ICM. A lot of them make 1/200th scale. Now, let's get a hold of some big ones. Okay, here is an example of what happens when somebody gets very enthusiastic, they want to try it, they go out and they buy the first thing they can see, it looks big, it looks impressive, and it never gets finished because they didn't realize how much work it would take. I rescued this from the garbage. I'm going to use it as a base to do some kit bashing. And this is the 196 Cuddy Sark by Revell, which we will show you now, the full kit.
So remember, when it's that long, it's also going to be that high.
Yes, absolutely.
So think of it like a triangle.
Absolutely. Let's get something else out here. By the way, this was the kit that my dad gave me at age 9.
Very good.
And I was so proud that I actually made it look like the box. It wasn't good, but I actually did good on it. And I was very proud of my results. Anybody, if a kid at age 9 can build this, you can too.
This is one of those fit the box.
Yes.
Stated scale.
No stated scale. It ends up being about 180,
Okay.
roughly. It's a little bigger than 1/200.
It's 22 inches long, so it's
Yeah.
nearly 2 feet long.
Yeah.
And then we say again 2 feet high as well. So it's a
Exactly.
substantial model.
It is, yeah.
But it's still not as big as the
Oh, no.
96 scale, for example.
You want some big ones? Okay, let's take a look at Pamir by Heller. This is 1/150th. And this is a big hit. And again, so many people make the mistake. They go out and they see something like this. Oh, I want to try a sailing ship. They don't realize the amount of work that's needed. It's not difficult work, but it takes time. The important thing is pace yourself, take time. And always, please, buy something. If you're going to get a kit, get one you're interested in. It's no good buying, oh, look, it's got all these sails, and then you find out, well, it's not really something I like. Get something you like. Pick something that you're going to like to build. And here is that damaged one we just showed you. That's the Cuddy Sark. And this is still available.
3 feet long.
Yes. Ends up being 36.5 inches long and almost 40 inches tall when it's on its base. That's the one I got prizes for at various shows. Surprisingly, I've sold maybe 6 of my models, and won prizes with 4 of them, and I've given away 9 of them. That's another thing about size. Keep in mind, people, you need a place to put it. Anthony will have some pictures that he can put in the video. Where do you put it when it's even half built? I had to hide it on top of bookshelves to keep it away from cats and fingers and little people and all this other stuff. But you need a place to put it afterwards. So size is always important. You know you want it. You're looking at the box, it says 16 inches, 20 inches. Okay, you can think, all right, I have a shelf that'll fit that, or I have a cabinet that'll fit that. Marvelous. Now, here's another example of a Revell kit. This is the Revell Constitution in the same scale as Cuddy Sark at 1/96. This is another example of somebody who started it, did a good job, but lost interest. Basically, after 5 years of sitting on the shelf, they said, no, I'm not going to build it. And it ended up in a yard sale. Actually, at the Conroy final sale.
Okay.
Over at the Conroy location. There's nothing wrong with it. I have all the other pieces at home. But they lost interest. So always try and pick something that you're interested in and never be in a hurry. Have a safe place to put it once you started building. Anybody who makes models, you don't want to leave it out where cats or little fingers or people can find it. Now, in this medium sizes, we've seen the big sizes. 1/100th is now becoming a popular scale too. A lot of the Heller kits, like you mentioned, the Victory. Anthony's got some pictures, he can put them in the video, of my Victory. I've got 900 hours in it and it's not finished yet. I figure I've got another 400 or 500 hours of rigging to finish. And I just got the masts up. I got to do all the spars and sails. Another example in wood. A lot of people like to build in wood. Yes, and it's traditional. Ship models, particularly sailing ship models, traditionally were made in wood kits. Now, this is a rattlesnake, small frigate that was commissioned in the American War of Independence. And it's a beautiful kit, it's full hull, fairly easy to do if you're used to woodwork. The problem with a lot of wooden kits, a lot of people give up on them because they don't have what we would call instructions.
This was a solid hull, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's a little easier than a plank.
Very much so. Very much so. Because you don't have to fiddle around making the hull. It's already shaped for you. So it does make it somewhat easier. But the main problem is that people are not used to this kind of instructions. There are no fold-out instructions. Glue A to part B. There are 2 sets of plans. And you're supposed to work from these. And that's all there is. There's one for the hull, one for the rigging. So an awful lot of people go out and they buy a wooden ship kit, they get it home and they realize, ooh, I'm not sure I can do this. It can be done. Again, patience and don't be in a hurry. Now, anybody who's worked with woodwork of any kind, if you haven't done a plastic model and you have worked with wood, this would be a good way to start. Anybody who's used to blueprints or drawings on how to make, let's say, a table or a chair set can handle this type of kit.
I don't know what it is, but
it's losing little bits. Again, this was something somebody started and just didn't have the heart to finish. Again, I purchased this at the Conroy last sale. And this was an expensive kit. Model Shipway is a good company, but they do wood. Wood can be difficult. Wood can also be easy. Good example. You might open this and show this to the viewers. This is an example of a simple, easy wood kit. It comes with reasonable instructions. It's a nice little schooner, carved hull. The whole length would be about 12 inches, maybe 13 inches tall. All the wooden parts are pre-cut, and it's very simple to do.
that might be a good one to get started on.
Very much so. Especially if you are interested in wood kits or working with them, something like this would be ideal. And there are quite a lot of companies that will make, Midwest is one of them, Model Shipways, make solid hull kits that are quite easy to do. Particularly they're rated beginner, medium, expert. All their beginner kits are quite good. Model Shipways makes, for instance, a Sultana, a little colonial schooner, it's about that tall, and it's very easy to do. It's just a matter of being patient and painting. Painting and finishing after you've got all the bits on. Some examples of medium-sized kits. For instance, here's the old Revell Victory. This is the assembled hull. It may not be too visible there. Okay, not too bad.
So again, from sprint to stern, about a foot.
Yeah. Roughly 10 to 14 inches, depending on how you want to finish it. It's okay. I personally, I would not recommend it, and this is my personal view. I would not recommend it for a first kit. It's way off scale. The hull is fine. The hull measures out just right. But the rigging and masts are very out of scale. So it's something that if somebody has a bit of experience behind them, good work can be done with it. But it's not something for a first timer, I don't think. At least I would not recommend it as such. Something that might be interested as a first timer, much simpler to build. Norwegian Drekars, or longships from the Vikings, the pirates. These, I don't have the box, but they're made by Heller, they're made by Revell, they're made by Smer, various other sizes. Most of them will be under a foot and a half, usually under 16 inches long. And they're simpler to do because of one mast. One mast, one sail, and very easy rigging. The hardest part is painting. And anybody who's done a lot of miniature work, it's easy enough. That would be a good suggestion of somebody who's never tried before. If you see either the Heller kits, the Revell kits, of a Norwegian Drakkar or a Viking longship. Good way to start. Some medium-sized kits. Revell's Bounty. The Alexander von Humboldt, which is very pretty. A very pretty ship, and this is modern. There's a lot less finicky wooden details to put on deck because it has modern cabins and modern ventilators, but a little easier to understand and work with. And a very pretty little ship. Again, we're looking at 26 centimeters, 36 long, 26 high. That's a good example, medium size and relatively easy. Also, if we want to go a little bit different, Anthony will be able to put a picture in of the Great Eastern, done as a model kit at Heritage Con. But there's also the Great Western, and this is a kit that's available right now. It's just been reissued, I believe, last year. Possibly.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah, recently anyway. Airfix kit's quite nice. Goes together well. I think it's either way. Goes together well, and it's not terribly rigged. The masts are simple. And it is a powered paddle wheel ship. Sometimes that would turn some people on. They'd like something better like that. Something a little more modern, steam power maybe, but with the masts and rigging. This is affordable, and it's a skill level 4 by Airfix. But maybe not for a first kit, but definitely for a second or third kit once you've started. This makes a very nice model.
Now the model companies, they give you a scale of complexity. A lot of the Europeans do a 1 to 5 scale. So as you said, it's a 4 out of 5. I think in most cases, whenever they put rigging into a kit, they bump it. Because that's a whole other skill set than just gluing and painting. As soon as you add rigging or some complexity to that, it moves it up the scale into the 4 or 5 range because of the complexity and the fiddliness of doing rigging.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh. So, plastic is my preferred medium. I have built in wood. Anthony's got some pictures he can put in. And I've won prizes for the built-in wood, but I much prefer plastic. Polyethylene is my world. Polystyrene, the rest of it. So, wood is traditional. Plastic is a little simpler because you don't have to make the hull or shape the hull or plank the hull. Paper can be fun, but it is a different medium. It requires a different skill set. And finally, the little metal earth kits or GHQ for miniatures can be an excellent way to start. Especially for somebody who likes to paint and likes to make details but never done a ship before. That would be a very nice way to do it. Particularly Metal Earth and Peace School. Peace School has a very nice, for instance, they offer a Black Pearl from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's about 4 inches long. So, lots of different choices, but please remember, always check with your local hobby store. Ask about them. They can find out a lot of stuff for you. And final little note, while we're at it. Oh, here. This is another category. Like the Viking ship, it's simple. The decorations are tedious to paint, yes, but it's one mast, one foremast, and very simple rigging. What they call the ancient ships, mostly oared, but they always had some mast around them. And it builds up nice. This is about 2 feet long, built. Schooners, as you'd mentioned before. A schooner basically is a 2-masted. The blue nose famous on our Canadian dime, is a wonderful example of a schooner, and they're easy to build. This is a very, very old kit from a company who doesn't exist anymore, but it's still a decent kit. And it's been reissued by several other companies. Pyro reissued this, and I believe there was another company. It's been reissued
As long as the
several
mold
times.
exists, the models live on.
Exactly.
Oh, very nice.
And it makes a nice little model. It really does. Just under 2 feet long and approximately 2.5 feet tall with the masting. Schooners is a very good choice if you're going to start in any scale, because the rigging is fairly simple, and no matter what the instructions tell you, no matter who's printed them, basically they're all the same. As long as your masts are supported and you have your sail ropes, your sail lines going back and forth, you're fine. And you've got the Blue Nose as an excellent example. And the Columbus ships, Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. They're made by several different companies, and particularly the Nina builds beautifully. It's what the Portuguese called the caravel. It's two-masted, simple rigging, and it paints up very, very nicely. These are available in several scales, but most of them will be either in 1/100th, 1/96th, or 1/50th. And they build up beautifully. Okay, basically covers just about everything. I did want to mention books and
Reference
resources.
materials.
Yes,
Books
books and
always
materials.
good, especially when it comes to ships.
Exactly.
You really need visual references to really get the sense of the thing.
Exactly. Give me a moment. Let me get that.
So while he's doing that, let's just review here concerns for ship model. We've talked about choose your medium, choose your size,
Oh, yes.
walk before you run, pick something that's attainable and doable as a starting point, work your way up. Don't start with the victory, work your way up to the victory, or there will be no victory.
Exactly. And pick a subject you like.
Yes.
If it's a ship you like, find it in a small scale if you can, but as something you like, you will go back to it. It's not something you'll end up, after 3 months, you put it on the shelf, I can't do this anymore, and it gets put away for ages.
So these have been considerations when thinking about entering the hobby of ship modeling,
Yes.
sailing ship modeling specifically. And hopefully we'll bring Jim back at some point in the future. We'll talk about how to make plastic look like wood, tips and tricks for rigging, little shortcuts and things you can do. Those sails, do you enhance those vacuum form sails, or do we replace them altogether? These are things that you can do once you've got the hang of what's going on. Aftermarket, in the sense of sailing ships, it usually means sourcing things outside that have nothing to do with modeling or ship modeling, but we use them to enhance and detail the models and just take them up a notch.
Specialized tools. There's quite a lot of them. And optional sources. Sometimes simple things you find in a dollar store or in a pharmacy can help you in any modeling, but particularly in ship modeling. There are lots and lots and lots of reference books. A great many of them are available. Some of them are not anymore. Keep in mind, any of these can be found probably at your local library. So my suggestion, if you're going to get into sailing ships, you want a reference book of any kind, look for it at your local library first. Ask them what they have and what they can get as interlibrary loans. Because even when they are available, a lot of these books are expensive. And is it something you want to put $30, $40 into a book and then you find out you're not going to like it? Better still, borrow it from the library, read it through, and that may help you decide whether you want to start the project or not. the local library is a great resource for that.
And of course, there's online resources,
Yes.
as always, but some of us like to have that book in our hand.
Mm-hmm.
And if you didn't grow up in the Boy Scouts, you might consider about getting a little reference book about knots.
Nuts.
Knowing how to do knots
And
is a
rope
very
work.
essential skill when you're doing ship models.
Oh, yes. All right. Well, thank you very much
Thank you
for
for
having
coming
me.
in. We appreciate the overview on the subject.
Yeah.
As I say, if leave a comment below. Tell us if you liked it. Tell us what you'd like to see. If you've got questions that we can answer in a future video when we start talking about techniques and getting more specific with the whole hobby, please, by all means, submit them so that we can address them.
Absolutely.
As always, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Thanks a lot. Remember, hit that like button.
Okay, don't forget, please subscribe, slap that bell, hit that like button, and join Team Hobby Center.